I have great pleasure in welcoming the Vice President and Minister for Women's Affairs of the Republic of the Gambia, Her Excellency Isatou Njie-Saidy, and to invite her to address the Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. President of the 67th session of the General Assembly. I also wish to recognize the Secretary General of the United Nations and all your majesties here present, excellencies, heads of state and government, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I have the singular honor to read the statement of His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Njie-Saidy Jammeh, who would have loved to be here today, but due to unavoidable circumstances couldn't be here with us. However, he sends his best wishes to all here present. And I read his statement as follows. I thank Allah the Almighty, first and foremost, for making yet another annual gathering of world leaders possible. Let me first of all congratulate you, Mr. President, on your election and wish you success in your tenure as you manage the affairs of this august assembly. Let me also pay tribute to the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, for his tireless leadership and sterling contribution towards the creation of a better world for all. Our world, Mr. President, continues to be plagued, no doubt, by numerous challenges that can only be solved through our collective response. Multilateral diplomacy, as well as related institutions, surely offer the best hope yet for tackling our development conundrum. Protracted conflicts, man-made as well as natural disasters among others. Mr. President, peace and security, that will always remain a cornerstone of our organization. And for this reason, therefore, my delegation is concerned about this and welcomes your choice of the theme, bringing about adjustment or settlement of international disputes or situations by peaceful means. As we speak, Mr. President, many conflicts are raging across the world in ways that challenge the credibility and clout of our organization. The paralysis displayed by our common security mechanisms, for example, is astounding. Geopolitical interests have trampled the goodwill as well as humanitarian concerns that should compel us all to address these raging infirmities, be it in the Middle East, in Asia, in Africa, or elsewhere. Our collective security will continue to be undermined by geopolitical considerations, of course, unless and until we find the courage to reform the Security Council. Ongoing conflicts, for example, in Mali and Guinea-Bissau and Syria, are all recent cases in point. The Security Council should not be the stumbling block for sure in the settlement of disputes or by peaceful or other means. Rather, it should be a more helpful institution. Mr. President, my delegation is fully aware of the need for peaceful settlement of some of the conflicts in Africa, but we are equally aware of the need for robust action in dealing with the spoilers and merchants of death and misery in the continent. For example, ECOWAS is working to find solutions to all these conflicts, but needs, of course, the support of the international community in its entirety. We see the role, for example, of the Security Council, like I said earlier on, as a partner and an enabler of decisive action. Time, Mr. President, is running out. The elements of doom have been emboldened by our inaction. The United Nations, and of course the United Nations Office for West Africa, must work decisively to address the conflicts in Mali and Guinea-Bissau without delay. The African Union's engagement will be crucial, no doubt. Terrorists, drug dealers, and organized crime networks should be stopped, indeed, in their tracks, at all costs before it is too late. Mr. President, the relevance of our organization has at times been questioned, but one element that remains unchallenged, of course, is its character of being the best forum so far for confronting global challenges. As we convene, therefore, to discuss the issues of climate change, economic crisis, financial turmoil, food insecurity, conflicts, fighting diseases and poverty, or the special interests of Africa, the convening power of the United Nations confers legitimacy that is indeed so far unparalleled anywhere. As developing countries, therefore, we believe in the work that this organization of ours does. And therefore, it is for this reason, Mr. President, that we will support your efforts at revitalizing the General Assembly as the voice of the voiceless, where all people are equal. We also use this forum to call on the international financial institutions as well to open up and embrace overdue reforms. They should be transparent, inclusive, and raise the profile of their smallest members, like the low-income countries, for example, or least developed countries, as we call them. We call on them to embrace the Istanbul Programme of Action on LDCs. Mr. President, the fate of the Istanbul Programme of Action must not be written in the language of broken promises, like its predecessors, of course, unfulfilled commitments and weak resource mobilization. As LDCs, we are ready at all times to hold ourselves accountable for the implementation of the commitments we have made in Istanbul. We are equally ready to meet the target set out in the program. It is our, therefore, collective hope and expectation and belief, of course, that our partners as well and the rest of the international community will equally fulfill their commitments and own part of the bargain. Let us work together to bring about the graduation of half of the LDCs by 2020, as we set for ourselves. It is achievable, no doubt, if we all forge the appropriate global partnerships, of course, for resource mobilization. Mr. President, the scorecard on the Millennium Development Goals shows that while some achievements have indeed been realized or made with regard to some of the goals, a lot, however, still remains to be achieved. My country, for example, has met some of the key achievements and elements of the MDGs and is on track to meet all of them. In view of the fact that 2015 is just around the corner, of course, we need to do more to mobilize the remaining resources that are required, that will further improve the critical link between success and failure on the achievement of the MDGs. Critical to the achievements, of course, of the MDGs will be the scaling up of resources by enhancing global partnerships that we have forged for these goals that we set for ourselves. We must mobilize the modest resources required so that 2015 would not be another unfulfilled milestone. Mr. President, Rio Plus 20. Rio Plus 20 has defined the mechanisms through which sustainable development goals should be negotiated and indeed agreed upon as well. It is our hope, therefore, that the consultations on the post-Rio mechanisms will be all-inclusive, transparent, and indeed representative as well. Beyond managing the depleting resources of the earth, we must all push for ambitious and realistic goals and targets on sustainable food and water as well as energy. We must equally take into account the special situation of least developed countries and other vulnerable groups of countries as well. My delegation is of the strong belief that in the euphoria for sustainable development goals, the drive towards achievement of the MDGs must not be compromised in any way. We must hold ourselves accountable to meeting the goals by 2015 and not try to sift the goalposts when the deadline is just right before us. We must equally lay a solid groundwork for the post-2015 development agenda. Mr. President, for developing countries to continue to benefit from the appreciable growth that they are experiencing, and in order not to compromise their capacities, particularly to bring education, healthcare, and other social services to their people, debt cancellation or forgiveness is still a major option. Debt servicing still poses a major threat to our ability to attain sustainable growth. It is our belief, therefore, that our partners and the Bretton Woods institutions as well should consider the further extension of the HIPC initiative. Mr. President, as we strive in the Sahel to deal with drought and crop failure from the past year, please allow me at this juncture to thank the Secretary General of the United Nations for his laudable effort, which we all had today, on this initiative that he has for the Sahel and on what he plans to do for the Sahel, including Mali, which is part of the Sahel. We thank him for that initiative, which we are looking forward to. And thank all our development partners for the support they have rendered. Also, both to my government and to the Sahel. We are grateful for their solidarity as well as humanitarian support. In view of the perennial nature of food insecurity, it is my humble and considered view that the international community needs to do more to render more support to the agricultural sector of our economies. Mr. President,